All right, we're live, Facebook family, YouTube family, wherever else you may be listening or watching in on. I got a good friend of mine, Corey, on the line tonight. And what we are talking about is let's talk about employee engagement, retention. How can managers understand their employees better and why should they? So, Corey, say hello. Tell us a little bit about your background and then let's jump right into it.
Yeah, so y'all, my name's Corey Siegel. I hail from Louisiana, right? Born and raised Louisiana, New Iberia to be specific. But I'm residing in Houston currently. So all my Texas people, my state is better, but it's all right. Um, but yeah, so just a little bit about myself, right? So I am all about employee engagement. Like I believe that the employee is what really drives the company. It's what drives your profit, performance, everything, right? Um, and I just I've held many positions. I've been the supervisor, I've been the manager, I've been the team lead, I've been the project person, all that stuff. I've managed from the top flight people and made them better all the way to the bottom of the barrel, and then we got them up as high as they needed to be. So got a lot of different experiences, but the one thing that has always spoken to me or what stood out to me is the performance happens when the people are happy, and there's a balance to that. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself. You know, the people are our profit.
Absolutely. So, in this season, we're in COVID-19 season. Everybody's talking about that. Tell us a little bit about how you are working with your team and your managers in this season, and how is that working out? How does it feel?
I got you. I got you. So look, the one thing I've always preached to my actual team, right, is that the workday hasn't changed. It's just a workspace. And if you realize that, look, the only difference between my day is the only difference between the vision is that the actual space that I'm working, it might be a couch, it might be a home office. I was working outside like mornings while it wasn't like 95 degrees in Houston. You know, it hasn't changed. And I get to listen to the birds while I'm taking calls or answering questions for associates or somebody like that. Like, but the vision hasn't changed, right? So for my associates, it was just making sure that we cement what we've been doing and like what that level of productivity, with that level of action that we've taken, it hasn't changed. We just get to do it in sweatpants now. I
Right.
guess unless you want to get dressed up in the suit and tie. Um, but then for my management side, me communicating with upper management, with the directors, the AVPs, and all that stuff, is us then communicating, okay, on the back end, how do we ensure this goes smoothly, right? And there's a lot of times where, and again, I'm all about the engagement, and I'm always pushing our management team to realize what I get it from the management side that you want to have your hand in everything. But what message are we sending to the associate? What message are we sending to people when we say, I gotta have my thumb on every single thing that you're doing throughout the day? And so I'm pushing them to say, okay, how do we display trust during this time, right? How do we allow our associates to know that, look, I'm here, but I'm not the overseer. I'm not the person who I got my foot on your neck at all points and times of the day. And you feel like it's almost worse being at home than it would be in the office, because now I absolutely have to know everything that you're doing. So there's a balance between the two, right? So with the associates, I'm on the front lines. I'm like, yes, let's go. The day hasn't changed. Let's get it. And then on the top end of the half, it's a different language, basically. They're worried about numbers. They're worried about productivity. But for me, it's, you're going to keep your productivity here if you trust, if you keep the connection, and then you find ways to say, you know what, you're working from home, and I know you can do this, and this is how I'm going to show you that I know you can do this, and then let them do at that point, and then hands off.
Okay, so you're saying that in order for the employee to feel, I guess, a little bit better about what they're doing, to feel more comfortable, stay off my back.
hmm So there's always a level of autonomy that every single person wants to achieve in their life, right? And so, like, I like to keep it simple. Simple and sustainable is what I always preach. If you think about, if you were a line worker, or you were some type of line associate, or entry level, whatever it might be, and you have your supervisor and manager and director, and you have that chain of command above you, the biggest thing that worries you I can even speak for myself. The biggest thing that worries me is always having somebody over my shoulder. What are you doing? How are you doing it? To what level are you doing it? Do you sound right? Are you pressing the right button? And then I clam up and I'm like, oh my God, come on now, get away from me. And so although I might be really good at my job, I now become less in my job function because you're always watching me. And I feel like Big Brother is on the wall somewhere. And there's a business fly that's like with a camera zoomed in on me. So yeah, so there's a level of autonomy that you want to achieve with people, and then it's almost in reverse of how we think. Let me monitor you. Let me figure out what you're doing. If you scale it back and say, no, I do trust you. I do believe in that you can do the job. I
Mhm.
guarantee you that the same job will be accomplished, if not better.
Right. So eliminate the micromanaging is what we're
Right, right.
talking about. Where does that come from? Why does or and if you can, is there a difference between we see all these kind of infographics and things of what a manager is and what a leader is.
Hmm.
So are managers those people that micromanage, they manage, they tell you what to do, not go through it with you? Take us down that
Hmm.
path a little bit.
Right. So there's two changes, and I'll tell y'all a story I actually just had with my associate today, and she was interested in becoming a leader, and she was like, I want to become a supervisor, I want to be a manager one day, but I see what all the supervisors and managers go through, and I don't know if I want to do that. And so I had to pull her back and say, there's a difference between what you may see from some people who are the micromanagers, and then there's a difference between, and she considers myself like an actual leader, right? I
Mhm.
said there's a difference between me and a lot of the things that you're seeing. So as you see your peers say, my supervisor, my manager, they're always in what I'm trying to do. There is me, and I said, how many times do I check in on you? She was like, well, every now and again, you make sure, like, I might get an email or I might get an IM that's like, hey, what's going on? I might get a phone call just checking in on me, how my day's going. I said, okay, you feel like I check in too much or too little? She was like, I think it's just about right. It keeps me on my toes because I'm like, okay, well, let me make sure my P's and Q's are in order.
Mhm.
But it's also not like, oh boy, when's he gonna call again? Or when's the next? Oh my God, here's another email. So there's a fine line. And so then I explained to her, you have task managers who they have a list and they're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, write the list down. These are the things that absolutely have to get done every single day. I don't care how your day is going. I don't care what you had to do for the day. These things absolutely have to be done. And in life, there's some non-negotiables that you have to have in business, right? But
Mhm.
at the same time, we have to identify, are they critical or are they just something that I feel like we want me to do? So let's talk about the task manager, for example, right? And so I was explaining to her, you have those managers that they almost try to become super deep in what they're saying, and they're trying to like, oh my God, the statistics and
Yeah.
the vernacular. I've never seen such a process in my life, and they try to make it like more than what it is. And she was like, yeah, I've had those supervisors and managers before. And I said, how did you feel when you worked for them? And she was like, I felt stressed all the time. And I said, why was that? She said, because I knew at every point in time in the day, I had to have something done. I had to check in on it, even down to my time. Every single day, although we have a system that I log my time in, I then had to screenshot it, send an email to my manager to tell him that I input my time and this is what my time was. And so I said that is a task manager because someone is telling him, hey, make sure that the time is done. And instead of him saying creatively, this is how I'm going to check my time, let me do one better. I'm going to ensure that you have to send me an email. You got to put it in a system, and that's my way of verifying that you've put your time in. And
Mhm.
it's something as simple as that can weigh us down and bog us down and say, oh man, that's another task I got to get done. But on the flip side, you have leaders that I trust that you put your time in. And by the end of the week on Friday, I know you did it. And if you didn't put your time in, I'm like, hey, remember we talked about putting your time in every day? Like, what's up? And
Right.
sometimes it's as simple as those conversations to say, look, I trust you. I'm just bringing to your attention that I need to pay you next week. So please put your time in. And so I'm going to check in on you. We know what needs to be done. I'm going to check in maybe 3 times a day. If you need me more than that, I'm here, I'm available. But let's say the morning, noon, and right before we clock out, right? I'm gonna check in with you. Where you at? How you doing? What do you need help with? What did you struggle with today, right? And then we can work through that. And it's a fluid type of day based on what your day looks like. And you still know you need to get these critical tasks done every single day. You still know that you have a certain amount of work that you need to produce every day. But there's a difference between me saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Hey, how's it going? Did you get it done yet? Versus me saying, I already know you got it, so it's cool. And if you didn't get it done, then I'm gonna say, hey, I thought you had it. Like, what's up? And then I guarantee you that the response to the next day is going to be, oh, don't worry, I got you. And you'll build that trust with them, and you'll build the relationship with them to be like, you know what, I ain't trying to let them down again. Like, or it could be if you don't have the relationship yet, they'll be like, I ain't trying to hear his mouth again. So I'm gonna get it done.
I had an experience just what you're talking about. I ain't gonna call the company or the guy. Corey, he would come in, he would be like, so I noticed you came in at 8:30, and then you went to lunch around 11:30. So make sure on your time sheet you make sure you notate the time you was out for lunch. And I was like, why are you watching?
Yeah.
What else can you be doing besides time sheet watching?
Right.
He's sitting at the doorway waiting for people to come in and, hey, write this down. And then, oh, I noticed you went to lunch. Because me and another guy, what we used to do is we would go in at 4:00 in the morning. We'll work from 4 to 8 and go see a movie. And we'll come back and finish the time. So he would calculate from when he got in to when we left. He was like, where y'all been? Y'all get 8 hours. Well, we were here 4 hours before you got here. So yeah, that guy, everybody on the team hated him because he was just like that on every single thing, and his time was everything. And it's not, I don't even know why. He wasn't even, we had different supervisors. He wasn't even my supervisor. He was still jumping over to make sure that I put my time in right.
Right. And I'm telling you, like, I've been in the same situation too. Like, manager, I had just started a company. I was probably maybe 4 months in the company. Never late. Never ever late, right? And so I guess enough people in the department had been late or been coming in late or something like that. She stood at the front door, and I walked in, and I can't remember what was happening that day, but I remember it was something that was like, I had to be late because I can't remember. I was stuck on the phone with somebody because I think it was my mom or something. I was trying to console them. And I walked in, and she pulled me to the side, literally grabbed me. She was like, come here, stand right here. I'm gonna go grab your supervisor, and I'm gonna come pull him, and then you can explain to him why you were late. And I can't remember what it was. And I said, I knew that I was consoling. It was like my mom or my aunt or something like that over something, but I just made it deeper than that. And so just, y'all bear with me. All my grandparents are gone. So I said, you know what? I said, me and my mom with whoever I was talking to, I was like, we were in the car because one of my grandparents died. And so in my mind, I was like, I technically ain't lying. But the look on her face was like, oh my God, I can't believe, oh, I'm so sorry. And the point I was trying to make was, you never know what somebody's going through for that day.
Right.
And we always talk about showing up to work and whatnot, but you don't know what that person's has going on behind the scenes. Like, you don't know if I just almost got in an accident. You don't know if I just lost a loved one. And I ended up telling her at that point, I was like, I didn't lose my grandparents have been gone, but I wanted to see the look on your face. And this is from, if you could imagine, like, I had kind of like toughened up. I was like, yeah, I'm about to do this. But it was like associate to manager. And sometimes you got to manage up towards them to let them know, like, let me bring you back down to earth real quick. You don't know what these people are going through. You don't know what associates are going through. Like, just because you're the manager doesn't give you the right to belittle me. And that's all that was in that moment. Now, she wanted to bring me to the side and say, hey, I noticed you were late today. What's going on? You good? Sometimes it's a simple, and I do the same thing with my associates. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, I appreciate you making it into work today. Everything good? That's it. And then they're like, oh man, he appreciates me coming to work. He's not riding my back. Like, I don't have to, oh my God, I'm 1 minute late. Oh boy, now I gotta hear it. It's sometimes it's just flipping the script to say, hey, I appreciate you making it to work. I'm glad you made it safe. Whatever the tone is for you to tell them, I appreciate you even just getting here. It's that is it. And so what she realized at that point, and then she pulled me to the side later on after that, and she was like, you know what, I got your point. And she never did it again after that. And so I was like, you have to realize that yes, you're running a business. Yes, you want the profits, the performance. You're looking at all these metrics, but
Mhm.
we are people. People are people. And I said earlier, people are the profit. So what if I would have said, you know what? She want to act like that. I'm going to check out for the day.
Right.
And I'm not going to give you 120%. I wasted a whole day's worth of work from you simply trying to make an example out of me.
Yep. Because I'm still at work, but I'm here.
Right. Yo, I'm here. I'm here so I don't get fired.
All right, Marshall Lynch.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, I'm here so I don't get fired.
So let's take it the other side of the spectrum now.
Hmm.
Non-engaged managers or disengaged managers.
Hmm.
And I'll start with a story. I remember a group of us, same company.
Hmm.
We were talking about. So what happened was they told us they were going to cut our vacation time back, and we didn't quite understand that after we had just went through this meeting where the CEO got a raise, the company is profiting billions.
Hmm.
So this is a huge company. We employee 10 of 30,000.
Yeah.
So we was like, why are these things happening? And we all want to quit. So they brought
Hmm.
us into this room. They didn't get our line managers. They weren't there, was their managers above them.
Hmm.
So they were supposedly to hear our feelings and what can they do to make us happy. People was in there crying about they doing the best they can and trying to get the best ratings. And
Hmm.
after that meeting, nothing happened. Nothing changed. So for us, we all end up leaving too. At like one by one, we
Hmm.
left the company, went different places. What a company like that, and we always call them, they just want butts and seats.
Yep.
They want to just have butts and seats so they could charge their client and say that they have people working on the system.
Hmm.
What can companies do? Well, one, why does that button seat mentality exist? And then what should, if there's somebody listening and they're line manager or second line manager, what can they do to engage the employee to help with that employee retention?
Yeah. So the first and foremost, so when you talk about managers that just want butts and seats, right? Um, we don't use that to our full advantage, and as companies will say, I just need X amount of people to give X amount of productivity and have X amount of growth. That way I can say that the company grew this much and I employ X amount of people, right? But we don't utilize it to the firm advantage is what I call it, because in every job that we had, and I don't know how many jobs you've had and whatnot, but every job that we had, outside of being a rocket scientist, some type of doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or somewhere along the lines of that, even maybe an engineer. Um, if you do it repetitively enough, you'll get the job, and you'll learn how to do that job, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like with anything. It's if you practice bouncing a basketball with your right hand, all of a sudden you become good with bouncing that
Mm.
ball. And so what we don't do is we have the button seat mentality, and then we don't back it up with the train the button seat mentality or be intentional with the button seat mentality. So I can take a group of people who and I worked in an industry where every single person hired, they had nothing to do with that, right? And so, but the number one thing they had was they were able to deliver a level of service during that interview.
Mhm.
And so what happened was they train you up in the beginning, and then the repetition and everything, and then you become better, and then you become better, and then better and better, and then everything is promote from within. And
Gotcha.
so because at that point they're betting on themselves to know, if I promote everyone from within, I will have a better product than promoting someone from another company that might have 10 years experience, that might have 15 years experience. I'm going to bet on my people through repetition, through our process, through knowing what we do. They are going to be the best ones. But what happens is we just say, I need to hire people. I need to put 5 people in these seats to where I can make another team because I got X amount of work coming.
Right.
And then we glaze over the fact that, oh wait, they might need to know how to do the job. Um, but it's very simple though. Just create a curriculum, create a training program, or it's as simple as, and what I've done before, it's as simple as saying, what are we going to focus on today? What's the one thing that we're going to learn and then we'll never have to question it again? That's it. And if we can just take the button seat mentality and then have the training button seat mentality, or even just a step by step and not go through the motions and say, hey, here's your job. You do what you got to do. I'll check back on you in a year when we do a performance appraisal to see
Mhm.
whether you got better or not. Use that to your advantage because we're all people, we're all grown-ups, we're adults, we can learn. We have, I think it's elasticity or plasticity in our brains. I'm not a neurosurgeon, so don't quote me on that. We all have this up here to be able to develop and expand and grow, right? And no one shows up to work and says, you know what, I just absolutely feel like I want to suck today and I don't want to do a good job, and I'm not really worried about giving any type of effort. I'm just going to kind of sit here. And if you do have that, you have a disengaged associate.
Mhm.
Now, that segues into the fact that if you're a manager, you have those disengaged associates with button seat mentality. They're like, I'm just here so I can get this check. And then and Friday's gonna hit and I can go do what I need to do or pay some bills or whatever. As a manager, you have to then look internally and say, what am I not providing for this associate? Because people work for people, right? You've never seen somebody leave a company because they're like, this company is just atrocious. It could be, but not the majority of the time. The majority of the time, they will leave because of their direct supervisor, manager, whoever it might be. Their direct report, that is who they're going to leave. And that's who they're going to leave the impression with. And even when you do an exit interview, I guarantee 90% of that conversation is going to be about that person. They're not going to say, hey, that manager over in copy and printing over here really got on my nerves and I had to get out of here. They're going to say the person that I work with every single day is the reason why I'm leaving. So how do you engage those associates, right? So you got to figure out, number one, why are you here? Is it, and these conversations I've had before with my associates, is it you just, is it a, and realize your position, be humble enough to realize that it ain't that important. And
Mhm.
when I say it's not that important, realize that we aren't necessarily saving a life. If I mess up something, I haven't killed X amount of people unless you do actually have a job that does that.
Yep.
But what are you here for? So some people, it might be the very entry level position, and I'm just holding a job so I can get through college. But I get it that you're a manager and this is your life at this point. So you got a business to run and you got these profits to make so you can report. But be realistic with them because I've had plenty of people that said, you know what, I'm just here so I can get a degree and this is good money. And I'm just going to work until I graduate and then I'm out and I'm going into my field. There is a way to engage that person to say how you build your habits now is how you're actually going to go to that field and do what you want to do. So I'll tell you a story. I had an associate one time. I was working at Best Buy, and I used to work in computers and tablets, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so he was like, I'm not really interested in doing all the sales stuff. I'm not really interested. And I was supervisor at the time. I'm not really interested in doing all that stuff, right? If they buy the laptop, they buy it. If they buy the Microsoft Office suite with it, it's whatever. But the way that I was able to engage him was then to chat. So I had to figure out what's his personality. He loved being challenged. He loved challenges, right?
Mhm.
So if I had to come in every single day and say, you know what, I bet you can't sell X amount of laptops. And then that I bet you can't sell X amount of laptops turned into I bet you can't sell X amount of things with that laptop.
Right.
And then ultimately this person who came from and they were running a program at that time to see how you ranked within the company and whatnot, and they would reward you for that. This particular associate went from I'm just trying to be here so I can get this degree. This is good money in the meantime, and the hours work for me. So he was one of the top salespeople in computers and tablets, like in the state.
Wow.
And you'd imagine Texas is a big old state with a whole bunch of Best Buys in it. So you go from I really ain't trying to be here. I'm just trying to make my way until I'm out of here to I'm putting forth so much effort that I'm one of the top people in the actual state. And I don't know if it was ranked nationally and whatnot, but I know he was getting these little pins and recognition for it. But I had to figure out, how do I tap into you, right? I had to figure out, one, he liked being challenged. So
Yep.
if you challenged him, he would be like, challenge accepted. Number two, I had to make sure I mapped out what the big picture looks like. And so why not start working on the fact that if you give 120% right now, guess what happens when you get the degree and you go on? And then I had to bring it back to, he was very self-aware of himself, and I should say he wanted to be very self-aware with himself. And then you got to pull on those heartstrings kind of sort of and say, okay, so what is your brand? What do you want your brand to look like? Some people don't care what their brand looks like. He in particular cared what his brand looked like. And
Okay.
so at that point, we started to map out, okay, no matter where you go, what do you want your brand to look like? Why not practice it here? Because if you're in one of these big engineering firms or whatever, whatever your degree is in, what are they going to think about you once you actually get there? Have you practiced maneuvering within a corporate environment? Have you been able to build relationships with a general manager or a regional vice president or something like that when they come in? Because number one, it's always what's in it for me,
Yep.
right? No one cares about, if you go and preach company, 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 no one cares. And I'm just being honest about that. But if you put it, what's in it for me, and he's able to build his brand and learn how to do that, he's able to challenge himself and meet those challenges. And then ultimately he's willing to everything was let's work on you, let's work on you. And then all of a sudden he became that associate. And it's as simple as that. So for any manager out there, the number one question you should be asking is, what do you want from me? Or what do you want out of this situation?
Mhm.
Versus saying, this is what I need from you.
Yep.
And I guarantee the whole light will flip.
That's good. I used to work at UPS, and they did us like that too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let's have these competitions to see who can scan as many packages
Mm-hmm.
through the night, who can scan the most packages, who can load
Yeah.
the truck the tightest, who can do it. And man, they had us in there working hard,
Yeah.
and we thought it was fun because it took
Mm-hmm.
the boredom out of, okay, I'm scanning, put the box in the truck, but put the box in the truck, load, put the box
Mm-hmm.
to, okay, what is he doing in that truck and how many packages
Right.
does he loaded? Let me get mine on. And
Right.
it was me and my cousin worked there, and like our whole belt, and I we used to go to work late every day. We went to
Mm-hmm.
work late every day, Corey, till when we swiped in one night, they just changed our
Mm-hmm.
start time. But and they gave us that leeway because my cousin had been there a while before I got there, and he had a good
Mm-hmm.
reputation of, okay, if we need him in the truck and he get in there, he'll load that truck.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I built that same reputation behind him. So when we came, our whole belt lit up. Everybody was ready
Yep.
to work. So another thing that I liked about UPS was they did similar to what you talked about. They hired from within. So
Mm-hmm.
their managers, their hub supervisor, all those guys start out
Mm-hmm.
as loaders.
Yeah.
Loaders are unloaders, and they move them up. So when the belts burn down, when it's Christmas and you got 10,000 packages coming through,
Mm-hmm.
and they burn, those guys put on a belt, boom, they in the truck, and they
Yeah.
know what they're doing. So they led us in getting the job done versus standing out there yelling, "Hey, you better
Mm-hmm.
hurry up in that truck." They
Mm-hmm.
getting in the truck, they knew how to do it, they knew how to make it look good, and they knew how to have fun.
Yeah. And it's all about how you package it too. So like something that you just said was they challenged y'all, and then all of a sudden it was loading, 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 right?
Yep.
It was how they packaged it. I bet you can't do this, or like what's the
Yep.
competition or something like that. To create a sense of excitement versus saying, all right, guys, we got 10,000 packages unloaded. All right, I'll check in with y'all later.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. So it's a sense of how you package it. It's almost like sales, kind of. If I told you, hey, this is a remote for your fan, it turns your fan off and on. But if I said, you know what, if you bought this remote control, I bet you'll never have to get up to go turn the light on. You can even turn it up and down. And I like, you ever been sitting on your couch and it was just super hot, but you turn your fan on and it's entirely too big, like it's blowing wind everywhere and it got the papers flying and all that other stuff. What if it's had like three settings that you could like pick which one that you wanted? sounds a little bit more enticing than just like, hey, just buy this remote for this fan real quick, and it'll turn the fan on for you.
Yeah, you actually gave a benefit that somebody's looking for.
Right. I fixed the problem for you. And so it's like with leaders, it's like we approach it as this is my company, hear me roar, and you better do what I say, versus me saying, let me fix a problem for you real quick. What do you want to be in life? Oh, you want to make X amount of money? Are you money driven? Are you people driven? Are you purpose driven? Like, what is it that you're driven by? How do I fit my company to fulfill those needs for you?
So now take it to another question that I have. Is there a fear, or should there be a fear of leaders who, if I invest in my people so much, can I retain them, or is there a fear that they might actually leave because I have invested, I've helped them grow, or am I think, or should, because I think that's a scarcity mindset when you do that.
Hmm.
You don't want to train people, you want to keep them in their place versus seeing what their true value is. They may leave.
Hmm. Yeah, so that's the complete wrong mindset to have, right? And so it's we're in the social media age where people are dropping information left and right. Like, I mean, we're even on here right now, just giving knowledge, like giving our experiences out, things that we should be doing, things that you can do to get better, right? It wouldn't make sense for us to say, okay, I have an associate, but I just want to make you just good enough to operate within my company. But if you leave and go somewhere else, it's not really going to work. You should be operating under the mindset that I actually, and I've done this before. I want to teach you every single thing that I can, and how high you take that is up to you. I dare you to leave. And by saying I dare you to leave is not me literally saying I dare you to leave. It's me saying I'm going to build an environment that's so great for you. You
Mm,
don't want to go anywhere else. And you might be offered money somewhere else. You might be offered however much money somewhere else. But you know what you have here is like no other. So that's why you won't leave, because look, I'm supporting you. You're learning. We're fulfilling probably your economic goals at that, because if you're learning to this extent, you're probably getting promotions and raises and whatnot for you to be able to live the life you want to live, or move towards that at least. But are you building the environment for people to say, I get that you want me over here, and yeah, you're offering me more money, but man, they've been riding for me like heavy.
yep.
So it just it doesn't make sense for those leaders out there that don't want to really teach people how to do better, don't really want to, help people do better and stuff, because they just believe, well, if I pour all these resources into you, you won't you won't reciprocate that to me or whatnot. Don't worry about that. We can't control that, because again, we don't know what's going outside of in your household. We don't know what's happening in your life. So maybe a job does come along that they offer you 20,000 more dollars, and you're at a point in time in your life where you're like, you know what, I make a decent salary, I'm okay taking the 20,000 and just going,
Yeah.
do what you do. But I can guarantee you that you'll probably retain more associates, not probably, that you will retain more associates, will retain staff overall, if you just pour into them and then create the environment for them. And then I say, there's no reason for me to leave. I get that you're offering me more money, but this is where it's at.
Okay. So I want to pivot now. You have started a leadership mentoring group, if that's what
Hmm.
what you call it, where you teach
Yeah.
leaders and building leaders and pouring into leaders.
Yeah.
Why did you start that group? And is it because, and I'm just going to bring another scenario, another life experience that I had when I was with
Hmm.
that big company, their first line managers burnt out quick
Hmm.
because of what was put on them from the higher ups, and then how they had to deal with the employees. They just burnt out. So your group, did you start that for a reason similar to that, or you just wanted to pour? So take us there a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately for me, it's always about pouring into people, right? And I believe that if you create a community of people, there's things that I still need to learn. And as a great leader, as a phenomenal leader, you need to learn. You need to realize that there's other things that people are going to tell you and drop, and you'll come across in life that you need to learn from them too. So it's not just me pouring into people; it's me learning from them also. But it's also, I understand that we have those leaders who are in it for the money. I should say managers who are in it for the money. Let's not call them a leader. You have those managers in it for the money. You have those managers in it for the prestige,
Yep.
for the title, and then they can sit around for Thanksgiving and say, you know what, I'm I'm big boss at such and such company. You have those people. But if I can just help one person that might be thinking, okay, I'm going to become that type of person. I want to become a leader. I want to get into this position because I feel like I should be leading people, or the money is good once we do start leading people in those types of positions. If I've given you enough and poured into you enough, or put out enough content, that way you can see something from there and say, innately, I get it. I'm in it for the money, but my actions show that I'm in it for you, and I know how to pivot. Although maybe because for some people, other people aren't their biggest concern. For me, it is,
Mm,
because I want to get you to that certain level.
yep.
But if I can just get what you, teach you, mold you into, yes, you might be the money making person, but if you get around a group of people, you just innately just pour into them, and they're like, oh man, that's great. But then every day you go home and you're like, well, I got my paycheck, and I understand that, and it's perfectly fine to be able to do that. Don't hinder someone by taking a position like that, though. So that's part of the reason why. But the other half is me learning myself, getting around a community of leaders, because every leadership style is different too.
Yep.
So I want to learn from the super direct people. I want to learn from I talk about the triangle, right? Like my leadership triangle. So on this side, you have process, on this side, you have data, and at the bottom, you have people.
Hmm.
Now, you can have the process and the data all you want, but at the bottom, that's your foundation. If you don't have the people, you'll never quite make it there. And then when you see great companies succeed, it's always about the people. There's somewhere in there that the tagline is about caring about people. I can have a great process all day, but if my people hate to come to work every single day, am I really getting the value out of it that I need to?
Right. You got a bunch of people that's not following the process.
Right. I got a bunch of disengaged people who follow the process, and I might be making pretty decent, strides in productivity and whatnot. But I mean, is that really where I should be?
Yeah. Do you think that in this time, so with COVID-19, it has shown us that a lot of things can be done remote.
Hmm.
Now, in your opinion, do you think that, yeah, a lot of these jobs probably should stay remote, or do you think we need to go back to offices and be around each other and engage?
Yeah.
And what do you think about that?
So I think there should be a balance. So I wouldn't be correct if I said that people crave autonomy, even myself, and say that you can't work from home. You should be allowed to work from home. And I was talking to one of my peers about this, and I said, just give me like 2 days to work from home a week or something like that, because I do believe that the development of a great leader is being able to be touched, and you can see me and you can see my mannerisms, because there's certain things about leadership that people don't realize. That if I'll give you, for example, let's say you just ask me a question, but I'm doing like this, and I'm like, yep, sounds good, sounds good. Versus me, I turn my chair every single time you ask me a question, and I say, okay, so what was it?
Mhm.
Yeah. I think you're on the right track. And you can see my emotion and my mannerisms, and something as small as turn your chair around when someone asks you a question versus staring at your computer screen when they ask you a question. What does your face look like when you're staring at your computer? Because a lot of times, we can start to kind of like looking at the screen and all that stuff. Uh, and then the person comes up, and I'm sure you've probably ran across it before, and they're like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I got a question for you. Is it cool if I ask it for you right now?" And you're like, "Yeah, what? That's what I'm here for." But it's probably something that was going on body language wise that was like, well, maybe he shouldn't be bothered right now. Maybe I shouldn't approach him right now. So it's those types of things that you still need to see in person to be able to develop fully as a leader. Like there's certain ways of delivery, or how do you present something or whatnot. We just talked about facial expression. I was talking to our management team about, and with my team, they want to see face, because they're like, man, I miss y'all face. We haven't been in the office.
Mhm.
I want to see you. That tells me you're engaged because you miss me in
Right.
general.
Yep.
Like let's toot our horn for a second and say, okay, we got a family bond here. You miss me. And so when I'm explaining something, you got to realize that certain things can come off a certain way. So if my screen is not on and I say, y'all need to get to work, you don't know how that came off.
Right. Yeah.
But if I'm like laughing, I'm like, y'all better get to work. Like, and you see me smile and stuff like that, they're gonna be like, oh, whatever. Okay, we're gonna go get to work. There's a difference in that. So there's a happy medium you have to find between being around people and then leading from, and then allowing your work to be done from the outside. I don't believe that we have to do the 5 day, 7 day a week thing in person. I think there's a happy medium to it though. Has it absolutely shown that you can work from home? I am grateful for this situation.
Yeah, it has it. A lot of
Yeah.
things that, man, everywhere that state offices all closed
Hmm.
down, they're doing remote work. So it does show that, and there could be savings there. People
Yeah.
renting office space and buildings.
Hmm.
There can be savings, and some companies may be able to make transitions to some people remote or 2 or 3 days a week remote, and it can really work out for them.
You're
There was
right.
a question I wanted to ask you about open door policies.
Hmm.
Some companies have them and they like to, well, my door is always open. But if you skip the chain of command, because usually that open door policy is
Hmm.
for a higher up, a VP.
Yep.
But if you skip the chain of command and go to them, and then the middle management upset,
Yep.
what is the proper way to utilize an open door policy?
Yeah, I think it's just part of setting a standard to it. And I'm all for open door policy. I've worked for open door policy companies and I've worked for closed door policy companies. I didn't really like the closed door policy because it's like you're never heard. And I utilize open door policies for knowledge. So if your door is always open for me, I'm not coming to you with complaints. I'm coming to you so you can input what you know in here. And so every level, it kind of forces every single level of management to uphold their standard and their culture and their relationship with you, all of that. Because you got to dig deeper. Why do you feel like you need to go to the AVP
Right.
and skip the manager and the director and all that stuff? Why do you feel like you need to go to, I don't know, senior vice president if you haven't gotten the answer that you've gotten already? That tells me there's a shift in the culture. There's like a disconnect in the culture
Mhm.
because maybe I don't agree with my supervisor, and I've seen this before. I don't agree with my supervisor, so I hopped right to the assistant vice president. You skipped the manager. You skipped all the managers at that. You skipped the other supervisors in the department. You skipped the directors, and you went straight to the assistant vice president. And so what that tells me is there's not enough relationship in between that level for that person to feel comfortable going to. And that's where you have to start looking first, and not just, oh my god, they're coming to me again and they're bringing me these problems. That should then tell the AVP to come down and say, director, what's going on here? Like, is the culture with the managers not correct? Hey, managers, what's your culture like with your department? Because I had a question brought to me which just tells me that they're not necessarily comfortable coming to you with the question, because it was a supervisor issue, but they
Mhm.
skipped all of y'all by going to straight to me, which I don't have a problem answering, but that it's a underlying symptom for a different sickness.
And I like the way you brought in culture. So let's go there.
Hmm.
Culture starts at the top.
Yep.
Whoever owns the company, they establish the culture, and then it
Yep.
drops on down. So leaders and managers should be going to trainings to
Right.
not only understand the culture, but to ensure that they're able to process and push the culture down to the
Hmm.
workforce. So if a company struggles with culture identity,
Hmm.
what do they need to do? And if you're not getting it from the top, is it okay for middle managers, first line managers to work and create the culture for the
Hmm.
lower employees?
Yeah. So I'm gonna throw some statistics out there for you. And I'm not a data person. I'm a people person. Remember, um, 20% of upper management, and in that particular study, it said like the typical line manager above supervisor,
Mhm.
the director, assistant vice president, and I want to say I recall it being the senior vice president, or the regional vice president, I think it was. 20% of those people have a disconnect or a struggle with conveying their vision genuinely.
Ah,
So that's a big percentage if you think about it. Like some people may be, oh, that man, that's 1 in 5 people or whatnot. But could you imagine one of 5 people in your company? There's a lot of companies ain't got but 5 managers total.
yeah.
And one of those people don't know how to genuinely convey, guys, this is what we're all about. And
Mhm.
so that trickles down the line and the message gets lost in that stuff. So, and remind me of your question, because I had my other statistic in my head. So we were talking about how you should convey that to that culture, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So the second statistic is from the management level, 69% of managers struggle with having just general conversations with
Wow.
associates.
69%.
69%, mind blowing. Um, And so that, if that tells you anything, is that that's almost 3/4 of your company that, or your leadership management team, that can't effectively communicate with the associate, who, in my opinion, is technically the most important, because a lot of management positions are technically overhead. You have certain management positions that, we oversee numbers and all this other stuff, but if you take us away, the company will still run. If you take the employees away, they will not run.
Mhm.
And so that's what I mean by the overhead. But if you figure almost 3/4 of your management team said that they're not comfortable, they can't communicate in general with associates, how do you build a culture when you're not even comfortable with yourself and having that conversation with them?
Right.
And so I think it comes down to a lot of communication. How do we communicate the culture to them? What do our actions speak? Because you have a lot of managers who can come around and say, yeah, guys, we're all about let's say we're all about the people, right? And we people, and employees are the best thing. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, I got an employee appreciation day that we're doing today. Um, Come by on your break. And you're like, wait, I got to use my break to go do the thing that you wanted to?
Yes. Right.
Right. I got to use my break to go to the thing that you want. Wait, that's not adding up, right? And so that's what I mean. But so all the rah-rah is like the people, and I'm here for you, and the people. And but your actions at that point were like, yeah, but do that on your own time. Don't do that on my time. I care about you though. And so we can get caught up in a lot of times, saying one thing and the actions are different, and it's just like in relationship, husband, wife, whatever. And you keep running into that, and you keep knocking your head, and they're like, I'm gonna get it together, babe. I'm gonna get it together for you. And then nothing changed. It's the same thing. It's a relationship with your associates. How do you build that culture? Let that action line up with what you're saying, and don't let the things differ. And if you see your department going into a different direction, you got to look internally and saying, what am I not doing correctly to convey the correct culture?
Mhm.
Like, what actions am I not doing? Am I saying one thing but doing the other thing? Am I doing one thing but saying another thing? Because you have some people on the underlying side that they're all out and about, and they're like rah rah, and they're like, hey, I'm all for the whatever, the productivity. But everything you're saying from there is saying that you're more worried about the actual customer service or something like that. And so even something as slight as that can shift the mindset, because they're like, wait, I thought you just want me to do my job as fast as I could, but you're worried about me delivering this like outstanding customer service. So it's you can get it mixed up in there
Right.
sometimes. And I'm just giving y'all examples of how the message can get mixed. But yeah, you need to have some type of like how to not just formulate a culture, but how do you foster it? How do you build the culture?
Mhm.
Because you're always building the culture. And the minute you think that the culture is not building is when you'll begin to lose. And if you think about a wheel uphill, you're pushing the wheel, you're pushing the wheel, you're pushing it. And then you think that, oh man, I made it to almost the peak of the mountain, and then it comes crashing down back right on you. Or you reach the peak of the mountain and you're not holding on to the wheel, and you start going down the other side of the mountain, and then you go crashing and burning too, because then you kind of let up on it. You didn't continue to foster it and grow it.
Yeah. Good, good. That is good. So small businesses where we've been talking about a lot of the businesses and corporations that have the level.
Mhm.
As a small business owner, should I develop culture? Should I have all these things and should I engage my one or two employees? How can a small business owner apply the same principles that we're talking about in large companies? And is it important for them to do so?
Yeah, so first and foremost, it is monumental that as a small business owner that you build your culture, right? So not for a couple reasons. One, you don't have time and money to go and find employees and market on the radio and flyers and ads and Facebook and all that stuff to get more employees, right? So you want to keep what you get. Because that's dollar signs right there, right? But even further than that, when you build your culture, people will buy from you simply because of what your culture is, right? So if you have a specific product and you're like, the culture in my business is, I don't know, excellent customer service, and we tell every single person, let's use Chick-fil-A, for example. I went to Chick-fil-A today and was like, man, y'all better tell me my pleasure. Like, I'm here for it. Like, I'm
Yep.
here for that. And so we buy into that, and because there are people out here who go to certain establishments simply because of who they are. Because
Mhm.
people buy into what you do, or I should say, why you do what you do, not what you do, right? I can go get a let's talk Tom's for example, right? Tom's blew up, and let's be real, the shoe is not some um, constructive,
Right.
super material, like last year lifetime shoe. But Tom said, if you buy a shoe, I'm gonna give someone the shoes. Like I think it was like a kid in need, or they sent it overseas or something like that. I'm going to donate a pair of shoes, and then everybody was like, "Oh man, that's super cool. If I buy these shoes, I'm helping somebody out." And so their whole culture, I guarantee you, if I walked inside of a Tom's warehouse, factory, wherever, it probably was all about helping.
Yeah.
And if I help you, you help them. And then all of a sudden the culture of that builds together. And it's not just a vision, it's not just that this is what the company does, it's who we are in essence.
Mhm.
So as small businesses, it's pivotal for you to build that culture, because all of a sudden word of mouth is like the best marketing that you can have, right?
Right.
So your employees will say, man, I got this really dope job working for Tyrus at I don't know, XYZ warehouse. Man, he loves us. Like, do you know, like the culture is amazing, all this stuff. You will generate some sales simply by someone saying, man, that sounds like a dope place to work for. Man, let me go ahead and support them real quick.
Right. Yep.
I've done the same thing myself. I'm like, man, it looks like they're having fun over there. Man, let me go ahead and support this real quick. And so I would say building a culture in a small business is even more important than the big companies, because or I should say it's easier in a small company because you can pivot. And if you think about it like a boat, right? A large corporation would be that big old boat with the cannons on the side, and in the heat of the battle, you gotta like flip the thing and it's like spinning, and you like, oh boy, here we go. It's
Yep.
gonna take about 45 minutes to
Right.
turn. With a small business, you in a little boat rowing, and you're like, oh nope, that ain't working. Up back this way, and no, that ain't working. Let's go back this way, and you can pivot at any moment to make a change. When in a big company, you can't really do that, because then you got to create a curriculum and a training for it.
Mhm.
You got to disseminate it to 14 different offices countrywide.
Yep.
Then you got to create the buy-in. You might have 25,000 associates. You got to get them to buy in. Then you got to hold them accountable to it. And hey, this is the new change. Remember, this is the new
Right.
change. But the small business can really win when it comes to building culture and engaging your associate, because your associates will sell for you if that's the case. Hey, I work for such and such company. Man, that's the best job I ever had. Oh,
Mhm.
what's the company? Oh, let me get on Instagram and start scrolling. Oh man, that's a good product. Boom, I got sales. So it all trickles down. And I know I always talk about retention, but it's also it's so many things when you engage your employees that come into effect. It's just I can't talk about it enough. Like culture, retention, all that stuff. We could talk for days about that.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one thing that when I used to do workshops and trainings on virtual assistants, because I've been using them since
Mm-hmm.
2014, 13 ish.
Mm-hmm.
People always would come and say, man, I got a virtual assistant and I can't get them to do what I need them to do. And my first question would be, well, how much are you paying them?
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody wanted the $2 virtual assistant. That was the big thing. That's
Mm-hmm.
what some guru said it costs to get a virtual assistant. Well, if I'm paying somebody $2 an hour, I don't care what country they're in.
Right.
Level of work and attention to detail is not going to be high.
Correct.
Another thing I noticed was, okay, so where's the systems and processes for that virtual assistant?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought I'd just tell them what to do, an overview, and
Mm-hmm.
they'll figure it out. Well, now you want somebody that you pay $2 an hour to figure out your process.
Right.
So with my team, and I always try to mirror my team for other people, we have regular conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Not only are they virtual, I ask them about their families,
Yep.
and I treat them like family. They're not just somebody that I can get cheap labor out of. And I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of companies, both large and small, look at people like you were saying earlier. They look at the metrics, the numbers, and just as labor and not as
Yep.
people. So once you start treating virtual assistants like people, like
Mm-hmm.
family, you pouring into them, you're developing them. Anything I could teach them or share resources, man, my
Right.
team is fire, and I don't have to go nowhere else to find
Right.
anybody because I know that I've delivered, gave it to them. We've had hard times together. We had good
Mm-hmm.
times together. So now it's like, oh man, I need somebody to do my website. I'm gonna let my team do it. Who can
Mm-hmm.
bring on the team? So we got a question. I'm gonna put it on here. Can you see that on your
I
screen?
got you. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you think your time in the Air Force on the east side prep you to be a leader on the outside? And what characteristics do did you look for in leaders? So yeah, when I was in the Air Force on the enlisted side as a troop, it prepped me to be a leader on the outside by really the Air Force gave me what I consider my thought process for system processes in order.
Mhm.
I knew everything that was expected of me in the job, and then I knew what my supervisor what was expected of him. So I always looked at it as, okay, this is the system, this is the process, and we working together for the mission. So I think being in the Air Force, enlisted, being underneath the command, you got all your sergeants and everybody up, and then you got the officers who are above them. It just gave me a blueprint on how to be a leader outside. It gave me that I need to put these systems and processes in place for my people. This is the chain of command. We're going to regularly meet, muster, whatever you call it, and that's how we're going to do this thing in the organization. And what characteristics do you look for in leaders? I think really I want to highlight what Corey said the most. I look for someone who is trying to pour into and they are caring about the people. I look for that servant leader. I think
Mm-hmm.
that is number one. Like E, for example, how he pours into when we were in Michigan together at the event, how he poured into us, how he came in, how things were. I'm doing this for the team, for the team, for the
Mm-hmm.
team. So I'm looking for that servant leader and that team member. I'm not really looking for that person that they can have all the knowledge in the world, but if they're treating me like a number or treating me like a tool, then that's not really the characteristic of a leader that I look for. I look for that team leader that's ready to serve. What are the
Yeah.
characteristics you look for, Corey?
Yeah. And so, like, I'll tell you this. Like, I don't know much about the military. I've never been in it. I had a lot of family members who've been in it. But the one thing I can tell you is any situation or um, trial, tribulation, whatever group you're joining. Let's use the military for example. I'm gonna use the wrong word. Steal from them. Don't physically steal from them. I don't get court-martialed or nothing like that and see you on the news. But take what they're doing and then make it you. And so that's what I've always done. I've been in certain corporations, certain companies, and I see what they're doing, and I say, okay, well, how do I make it Corey? How do I make it my way? And what makes me great and operate within that spectrum, right? So I would challenge you one. So as you're in the military, I know there's a whole bunch of systems and processes and things that y'all are supposed to do by the book. And then when you come out, it's no different than just doing the same thing, but making it you.
Yeah.
Now, what do I look for in leaders? It's the same thing. So servant leadership, but I look for someone who believes in other people more than they believe in themselves. And the reason I say that is because not everyone is placed on this face of the earth and you smack down and the stork brings you down, because that's how we get here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the stork drops you down on earth, and all of a sudden you're just like super motivated and you're like, I'm gonna go get it. And I just wake up every day with the grind on my mind, and it just I got it. No one needs to push me or anything like that. There are people in this world who need someone to believe in them and someone to push them. Now, the second characteristic I'll say, so not just believing in the person more than believing themselves, push them, and don't be afraid to push them. Right. So I think it was something along the lines of 70% of associates say that they don't receive the feedback that they want. And so what we're doing is placing a bunch of leaders. And as you can be happy and go lucky, and you can be, oh man, I'm your best friend and we can work together and whatnot. Clearly, we're missing an opportunity to give the feedback and accountability and to push that person to be a better person, right? Push the person to perform better, because this is what people are telling us that they want from us. They want the feedback, but they're not getting it. So belief in the people, hold them accountable and push them to do further than what they're doing. But I look for someone who has vision, and not just vision for themselves, but creating a vision for other people, because you can push people and you can believe in them all you want. But if we just keep saying one day you'll be better and this is how you do it and go be better, but you never map it out. And we have to be many visionaries for people's lives, because you have to figure out what is it that this person wants, right? Is this a person that says, I want to become the CEO one day? And all they keep saying, I used to be the same way. I want to be the CEO one day. I'm going to be the CEO. I'm going to take over this company. I'm going to be the CEO. I have absolutely no clue how to do that. I do know, however, how to go and get promoted to the next position. And so then I don't know what it looks like on the top end. I just know that one day I'll be the CEO. And if I just continue to work, which is one of the things I don't believe in, if you just work hard, things come to itself. I don't believe in that. I believe that if you work intentionally, things come along.
Mm.
And if I know where I'm going, and if I know what steps I need to take to get there, and I was that visionary behind that person, the person can then articulate, this is where I want to go. So one of the things I always say is, if you're the only person that knows where you want to go, that's a problem.
Right.
But if you never know where you want to go, how do you get there? And how do you tell somebody this is where I'm trying to go? Because I can rant and rave all day and say, I'm trying to be a CEO. They're gonna be like, oh, congrats.
Yeah.
noble effort.
Yeah.
But what if I said, I'm gonna be the CEO, but I know in my mind I want to be the CEO, and maybe I need to get this next promotion. And then I run across somebody and say, you know what? They'll be like, what's your goals or whatnot? Well, I really want to go be the project manager over here in IT. And then the person says, oh, really? I might know somebody that's a project manager in IT. But I know the step that I need to take there is to become the project manager in IT. I know in the back of my mind I want to become the CEO. But my next step is to become the project manager in IT. And because I've articulated that, and I know that's the step that I needed to take, all of a sudden the doors start to open and you can start singing the song, project manager for IT. Hey, what you trying to do? Project manager for IT. You got any project manager for IT positions open? And then those doors start to open up. And then boom, all of a sudden you become what? Project manager for IT.
Yep.
And then you become that project manager and you say, you know what? I know I need to become a director. And then you run across somebody and they say, hey, what is it that you need? What are you trying to do? I'm trying to become this, whatever that next step is, that director. And then you start singing a song. I want to become a director. I want to be this director. And then the doors start opening up and then boom, you become the director. But all in all, you knew you wanted to become the CEO, but you know how to articulate it now because you know the steps and how to get there. And you know someone helps you with the vision to say, don't just sing the song of CEO, sing the song of the next step. And know how to pivot. So if I'm talking to the CEO, maybe I tell him I want to have your job one day.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm talking to the hiring director for the position I want to go to, I'm not just singing the CEO song. I'm singing the I want your manager spot.
Right.
Right. So when that opens up, you keep me in mind. And that's what I'm saying. So not just so believe, hold people accountable, but the vision behind it. What can you create the vision for somebody?
Mm-hmm.
And that will completely change someone's life. So those, I would say those are the top three things that I look for in a leader.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Corey, I absolutely appreciate you being on with me this evening. We done hit an hour fast.
Yeah, that came quick.
It came quick. So how can people reach you, especially if they want to be a part of your leadership community?
Yeah, so you can send me an email, info@CoreySiegel.com. I am doing some changes to the website, so CoreySiegel.com will be coming up soon. But you can find me on Instagram. You can look at Corey Siegel. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram. I have Corey Siegel too. Check out my snack time I've been doing. So if you want some cool statistics, check out snack time on Instagram. Yeah, so those are the ways you can check me out. Be on the lookout though. So I'll tell you this: if you email info@CoreySiegel.com, I have a 14-page guide with a worksheet attached to it that are the top 3 leadership struggles. So be on the lookout for that. Email me; I'll give you a free copy of that. Yeah,
nice. And I dropped your info in the chat so folks can see it.
cool.
Make sure they reach out to you and get there. As we wrap up, I want to leave a quote that Dr. Miles Monroe said. He said, "True leaders don't invest in buildings. Jesus never built a building. They invest in people. Why? Because success without a successor is failure. So your legacy
Correct.
not be in buildings, programs, or projects. Your legacy must be in people." And I
That's right.
that summed up everything you said about that triangle and that base being people, the
Yeah.
foundation. Without it, the rest of the stuff don't even matter.
Right.
So for all of you that joined us, I appreciate you. Have a great rest of your evening. I will be bringing Corey back some more and we'll chop it up a little bit. If you have questions, just drop it in the comment section and we will fill those questions and have a great evening.
All right. Y'all have a good evening.